if you could just tell me that how integral is financing in the overall scheme of the business? Is financing?
I think nobody. Sorry to interrupt. I'm very
so
passionate about this.
Yeah, of course I understand. I can see the enthusiasm. So there's like it's a two-part question. So first of all, how integral is financing in the overall scheme of business? And second is financing pre-owned vehicles as important as in a new purchase?
Great, very good question. And in fact, I would say that financing is the core. If you look at two-wheeler financing, okay, the overall finance penetration. So if 100 vehicles are getting sold, 50 vehicles are getting financed. This 50% is the finance penetration. But when you look at the car industry, the finance penetration is almost close to 85 to 90% now. Okay, so there's a big gap between the two-wheeler and the car industry in terms of finance. Now, if you want to cut this finance penetration into rural and urban, okay. So in rural, the finance penetration is as low as about 35%. Okay, so and if you further cut it, and if you go to some states like UP, Bihar, Orissa, Rajasthan, Haryana, you will see that the finance penetration drops to as low as 17-18%. So the reason for this is not that the customer doesn't need finance. The reason for it is that there are not enough people financing these vehicles. Okay, because as I said again, the challenge is that how do you finance a small ticket size? Even in a new vehicle today, the ticket size will be as low as 55 to 60,000. So NBFCs, and banks definitely can't do it, and they will not do it also. Okay, so it's mainly the NBFCs, other than 2 or 3 banks, which traditionally had got that business from one of the NBFCs that they have bought or whatever it is. Otherwise, it's an NBFC-oriented business, and even NBFCs find it very difficult to do it because you can actually do bigger ticket sizes for almost the same costs. Okay, so I would say that and you may have noted, you may know this, that in the last 3 years, the two-wheeler prices have gone up by almost 25 to 30%. Okay, due to the various norms which have come in terms of insurance, in terms of the safety features, in terms of the BS6 coming in, all this kind of thing has really jacked up the price. So more and more customers actually need finance now. Okay, so if anybody wants to build a life cycle company, and we get this all the time, that somebody is doing buying and selling of vehicles, they start doing it, and within no time they realize that finance is the most important thing. And so we have tied up with almost all of these kind of people who are doing this work. So core is finance actually, and if you do not have finance, you cannot build a big life cycle business. So that's the answer to your first question. The second question answer is that in second-hand vehicles, today, nobody, again, it was a supply side issue. Nobody was financing. So people said that people don't need finance because the ticket size is small. Our experience in the last 4.5 years has been that if you start financing vehicles, if the customer starts getting finance, he starts buying a better vehicle. Okay, yeah, instead of buying a vehicle which is 10 years old or whatever it is, he starts buying a 3-year or 4-year-old vehicle. And ideally speaking, our aim is that that the new vehicles should be changed within the 3rd or 4th year, so that there is a good amount of life left for that, for 2 or 3 more rotations.
For second owner, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, second and third owner kind of. So otherwise, people used to come and say, "Merko 15,000, give me a 15,000 rupee vehicle," because that's the money that they had in their pocket to buy. Today, we are able to upgrade them to a 45,000 rupee vehicle with a 15,000 rupee down payment, and say that you better buy a good Activa or buy a good Splendor or a good Pulsar rather than settling for a old, very old kind of a bike. Okay, so finance does that. Finance also is very important when you're looking at bigger bikes, say the Enfields of the world or the KTMs of the world, etc. Okay, wherein big cities, for example, people are looking at buying a bigger bike at a cheaper price, and so there also finance starts becoming important.
Actually, since this question was supposed to be coming down way later, but since we have touched the point, I wanted to know that what kind of penetration are we looking at? Since with the bigger bikes, with the premium end bikes, what kind of penetration is there when it comes to premium bikes, when it comes to second-hand?
You're talking about second-hand bikes, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So the penetration is very, very low. I mean, it is like in less than, I would say less than 5% or 6%. because who is doing it right to now today? It's only us who are doing it.
Okay.
Okay, or somebody else, may give a local money lender or somebody where the rates are very high. So the penetrations are low, and that is where once the finance starts doing this, and the other aspect to finance, especially when we are talking about say higher end bikes, is actually instead of doing financing, also doing leasing. Okay, and that's one product that we feel that high end bikes, the leasing is a much more I would say a differentiated product. For example, you want to buy a Enfield, maybe the 650 you want to buy, okay, and that you would be riding it only for 2 or 3 years, because then you will change the model, you'll get into some upgraded model,
Yeah, upgrade.
or they will come out with a new kind of upgrades. So if I'm going to give you a lease kind of a thing, the saying that after 3 years time I'll buy back the product. Okay, so at a residual value, so your EMIs which you are paying every month comes down by almost 30-40%. Okay, straight away your EMI comes down, and then after 3 years you do not have to run around, you can just give the bike away. Okay, and since we are into second-hand vehicle business, for us it's much easier to take the bike, refurbish it, and then sell it again, or lease it again, and follow that cycle. So while I confess that we are not doing too many of them right now, but we started that about a year back, and it is something which is picking up very well actually.
Okay, higher end motorcycles and
yeah, for higher end models, it makes sense actually.
So, what are the hygiene practices practiced by Bike Bazaar to make sure that the customers receive top-notch service? I mean, take us through the life cycle stages where you handhold a customer regarding the hygiene checks.
Yeah, so I think if you look at the entire two-wheeler category, if you see that, I think starting from the first vehicle that he buys, it's a new vehicle, and financing that vehicle. Okay, now that a lot of people do that financing. Okay, there are a lot of NBFCs doing it, but as I said, our specialization is to finance this vehicle, especially in rural areas, the new vehicle, wherein the customer doesn't have a bank account, or has a bank account which is very, I would say, which is something which he hardly uses. See, most of these customers actually have money which comes into the bank account, they immediately remove the money, and it's almost economy wherein they earn in cash, spend in cash. So we find that it's it is not fair to deny a customer a loan just because he doesn't have a proper banking habit. Okay, because otherwise he's a good customer. He may not be a banking worthy customer, but he's definitely a credit worthy customer. So this customer we actually finance based on very little documentation, etc. And one of the characteristics of this entire finance is that entire repayment happens, wherein the customer goes back to the same place where he bought the bike from and keeps paying the EMIs there. And there we have a digital interface wherein the customer actually is able to digitally get the money transferred to us actually through the dealer or the sub dealer. So the way the two-wheeler industry works, as you know, is that every dealer will have about 15-20 sub dealers, which are spread in a radius of almost about 100 square kilometer, which is called as a command area. So you are reaching the customer at the farthest away from the main. So if you look at something like something like Varanasi, or something like what do you call some other town, say
Bijnor, let's just say, not Bijnor or something like that.
Yeah, Bijnor or somebody, a town like that. So around that, you have to reach almost 100 square kilometers, and that's what we do through the Bike Bazaar finance aspect. So that's one part. The second is, of course, is that the customer then wants to exchange a vehicle. Okay. So many of the customers have an old vehicle which they want to exchange. Now, these places have very little facility to exchange. So being into a second-hand vehicle business, we can offer that exchange. So we take up the vehicle, refurbish it, okay, slap a warranty on it, a 6-month warranty, give 2 or 3 free services on it, and then sell it in a franchisee outlet. So both it's an online, offline kind of a thing. See, we have realized that nobody buys the bike online. So they definitely would like to look at the bike online sometimes, but ultimately they want to go to a place, ride the bike, and see it, and then buy it basically.
Yes, exactly. So regarding that, what are the hygiene checks that the product goes through? So this is what you explained was about the customer, what he or she receives from Bike Bazaar.
Yeah. So
credit worthy. What about the product?
yeah. So basically, we have a full what do you call checkup which happens on the product. Okay. Now the checkup happens at two stages. The first stage is when we are buying the product itself. Okay, from a customer. Suppose you are a customer, you want to sell the product. Okay. So now what we do is that there is actually we take photographs of the product, we record the voice, we also have a video recording of the smoke. Okay. Now,
Emission.
based on that, we actually come to very quickly to a conclusion that this is the price that we'll pay for the bike. Okay, and we pay. So within like half an hour, you get a quotation, and the bike can be sold. Okay, and once the bike is bought, then it goes to our facility, which is wherein we have a facility to do the entire refurbishment, and there we have standard refurbishment packages actually. Okay. So depending on the severity of the bike, so we do the refurbishment basically. Okay, and so definitely we do the entire standard routine, checking all the brakes, checking the carburetor, ensuring that the entire electricals are functioning, change the oil. Okay, look at the battery that is fully charged, ensure that the tires are in proper condition, etc., and all that. Some amount of denting, painting. Okay, so you do that, and we are confident enough then to give a 6 to 8 month warranty on it basically. Okay, and but sometimes the refurbishments have to happen a little more. Okay, maybe a new battery has to be put and all that. Usually we do not find any engine issues because these bikes are damn good actually, and plus we have tested out whether the oil is going on inside is getting mixed up with the petrol or not, with the smoke, etc., and all that. So today we have a set of people who look at the videos and come out with a conclusion. But we are now developing a machine intelligence, machine learning kind of a thing, so that gets automated. We also are, have a database of almost about 250 odd bikes. That if there is a fault in a particular, suppose the tappet of a particular bike is not adjusted properly, or the tappet noise is coming, what is the kind of noise? So we already have a recording of that. So we start, we are putting that along with the standard noise. The comparison comes in, and there's a machine learning which happens, and it throws out saying that these are the parts you may need to change, and this is what it will cost. In terms of consumables, you do a product probability analysis. That depending on the bike, do you want to change the brake linings after so many kilometers, etc., and all that. So I think, in fact, in Bike Bazaar, more than finance guys, we have more engineers actually who work on this kind of a thing. So the bike is at the center at the end of the day.